Joined as always by Nate Christian, Bob Van Duzer, and Zach Duarte. Want to make a announcement. The rookie draft guide is live, everybody. So payup.com/dynasty rewind. You can go get it there, or you could sign up for a $10 tier. That is included in that tier. All the information is in the description. So great job, everybody here. Sean behind the scenes, he was doing a great job as well. His son Cole helping out a lot too. Cole, thank you very much. So we're good to go. Also want to let you guys know we will be answering some questions. Of course, super chats get priority. Make sure you hit that subscribe button while you were here, and any other way you want to support us, link is in the description. All right, so this is from Curtis Martin stepson. Rest in peace, running back spots. Because what the heck, man? Now there's only 2, and they're going to be overdrafted.
Only 2.
So we're saying only Jonathan Brooks, only Trey Benson. I'm assuming
only Jonathan Brooks, only Marshawn Lloyd.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
I
mean, definitely, I think there will be some overdrafting going on because of the scarcity, but it's kind of one of those things. It is what it is, and that's how running backs, the landscape is as a whole. You have guys that are in somewhat reliable roles, and you got to kind of pay up for them sometimes. Sometimes you get away with paying less on a veteran running back like Zach likes to, but a lot of the time, sometimes you got to pay up that little bit. And I will say, with the talent of Jonathan Brooks, the opportunity of Trey Benson, and there's a fair bit of talent there. We have our concerns, but we can acknowledge that there's still talent there while having concerns. So definitely the running back spots overall, definitely painful. I mean, we were locked and loaded with this draft guide with 25 running backs ready to possibly be drafted. And we went and essentially gutted most of them from the draft guide, and
just honorable mentions for the ones who were drafted.
Honorable mentions for the ones that were drafted, but we don't believe will necessarily be fantasy relevant, but deserve to be mentioned. And talked about that maybe, hey, this is somebody to avoid, maybe this is somebody to stash a little bit, whatever the case is. But we were locked and loaded with like 25 or 26 running backs, and it's like 16, 17 now. But
we do have an update,
which is still far more than will probably be fantasy relevant. But hey, we're here for you guys. So
from Curtis, other than Benson or Brooks, who is the best situation moving forward? Do we like Jalen Wright to Miami, Marshawn Lloyd to the Packers? For me, it's Marshawn Lloyd.
Lloyd is the easy RB3 here.
Yeah, I agree.
I understand the Trey Benson Lennox spot is better because Connor's older than Josh Jacobs. But if you look at the Josh Jacobs contract, it's a 4-year contract that's essentially a 1-year deal with team options.
Yeah.
After that, so. Not necessarily that Josh Jacobs is a one and done, but I certainly don't see him there more than 2 years. And Marshawn Lloyd, with how we've seen Green Bay use running backs before, with how he fits the floor system, I think there's still going to be some fantasy relevance from him this year.
Yeah.
And you could even take over the backfield as of next year. I think he's that good. I comped him to DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, I don't hate that comp, and I love the upside. I texted my dad. I texted my best friend. Not that you guys aren't my best friends too, but my buddy back home, longtime brother of mine. But looking at the Marshawn Lloyd situation and knowing how Packers have treated running backs, I would not say that Josh Jacobs is a 1 year and done contract, but there's always the option that they can get rid of him as soon as the cliff comes, or as soon as they see a dip, or they really want to just get Marshawn Lloyd involved.
So Waffle's saying, sent this to Mike last night, but for the crew, I got offered the 107 and Puka Nacua for my 102 and Derek Carr. I'd have no quarterback 3, but I'd have 4 months to figure it out. And Higgins would be my wide receiver 6 after this deal. So, I mean, we always say building around wide receivers, but that's building around wide receivers to the extreme, we can almost say.
Yeah, so here we're basically moving away from Puka, or we're moving away from Marvin Harrison Jr. for Puka. And then hopefully we're picking up a wide receiver. I mean, a quarterback at 107. That's better than Carr.
This is an easy.
I think that's pretty easy.
107 for me because Puka and Marvin Harrison are close enough. Yep. You're hoping Marvin Harrison does what Puka has already done, and the value gap between, even if they're not close or Puka greater value, the value gap between 107 and Derek Carr and a super flex with the opportunity to draft quarterbacks. We've seen some fall in some of your drafts, Zach, where you're getting guys like JJ McCarthy later, Drake May later. And if Drake May is your quarterback 3, as much as we have some concerns with that offense,
I think you're really happy with that.
I don't think it's just such a huge pivot, smash deal.
Yep.
Call it a day.
Sean, what was the next question you had for us then? This is from Chasing Breakers. Feelings on Bryce Young coming out of the draft. What's his value and where do you slot him?
I would pick him up for a late first.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where it's been. and
really solidifies it for me.
I think maybe he's a little harder to get. Maybe you need to add a little sweetener on there. But at the end of the day, I mean, this is great news for Bryce Young. This is something we talked about the entire draft process is go get weapons for your young quarterbacks. It helps them develop. Shocker, shocker, news to no one. But yeah, I'm much more curious to see and how Bryce Young performs this year with new weapons around him. I mean, across the board, new weapons and a new head coach.
Yeah.
You know, I would say wheels up, but hey, like, you know, last year was not good, not great. So positive, but
Sean, do you want to take one more and then we could start mocking?
let's go.
Cole's going to put that up for us. What do we got? This is, you know what, Zach, let's kick it to you. Of the quarterbacks drafted in the first round, who do you trust the least or looking to move? Let's take Michael Penix out of that.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say that's very
Because-
easy, Michael Penix.
We'll take him out because obviously he's not going to be relevant.
Wow,
for some
that's a really tough question. I got to be honest with you, man, and I got to be honest with you. I'm just gonna say Jaden Daniels.
Yep.
I agree.
I
don't hate
I
it.
have not this entire time, and look, I'm not the biggest film guy. I'm the least of the film guys of everyone here. But I have watched enough to be very wary of what you see when he's taking hits. He's not avoiding hits. He's taking ginormous hits, and that will not last in the NFL. So unless he learns how to not take hits, which look, he's with Cliff Kingsbury. Kyler Murray is very good at not taking hits. He doesn't take impactful hits, tore his ACL on a non-contact play. And that's something you could say, like, hey, you know, maybe I don't know if Cliff worked that out of him or he was like that before he got to the NFL, but maybe that Cliff Kingsbury can work with Jaden Daniels on that. I just don't trust that. And I don't like, I saw what happened with Anthony Richardson. We had this conversation day one, and you have a lot of people interested in moving up to get Jaden Daniels. I had a draft already where I had the 103 and 107, and I moved it for Jordan Love in 109. And I'd much rather have
love that
Jordan
move,
Love
honestly.
than Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a great example, you know, to answer this question is Jaden Daniels could work out. And I'm okay being wrong. Like, that's the thing about is having a stance is you have to be okay with being wrong on it. And I'm okay with being wrong on it because I just don't trust what I saw in terms of him not understanding when to get rid of the ball or not take a hit.
You brought up an awesome point with the question marks around Jaden Daniels, but he's the biggest value out of all quarterbacks that aren't Caleb Williams at this point. So you're moving off the most valued player that has the most questions, albeit maybe the most upside out of the group.
Yeah.
But you're moving off of all that risk to get to a more established quarterback like Jordan Love, other quarterbacks in the draft, whatever the case is. So I'm 100% with you. I just want to touch on that concept.
I think this goes back to the we hate values, not players, because if Bo Nix was valued where Jaden Daniels was, and Jaden Daniels was valued where Bo Nix was,
I would be
or
very
we'd be
close to
talking
a
totally
flip
different.
on there. Yeah.
Because
100% true.
as much as we love Bo Nix, he's also not in a great situation. I mean, we can talk ourselves into it very easily, and we like the tape on Bo Nix, but he's the other player here at the quarterback position that, you know,
Marvin Mims, Cortland
yeah,
Sutton,
that
Troy
offense,
Franklin
Sean
in the
Payton, does he
Z,
still have it?
Jaleel McLaughlin.
I think that's
Greg
another quarterback
Dulcich.
to be a little wary of. And that's why, as much as we like him, we still have him as a late first. We're not picking him up in the first 6, 7 picks, as much as we like Bo Nix. And if Jaden Daniels was also available 107, 108, 109, I'd be much more interested than having to pick him up at the 103, 104.
And this is from
Producer in
Space
training.
Mountain. Thank you for the super chat. How good or bad does the 304, 306, 308 look now?
Third round, basically, huh?
I've done a couple of drafts already, finished one last night.
Tell us what you got.
The third
What you
round,
saw.
the third round is a great place to be. You really start to see the questionable picks, like, ooh, do I go here towards the end of the second round? But there's still a lot of talent in that third round. You're seeing some guys fall. You know, we talked about Troy Franklin.
Yeah.
You know, you could pick up potentially Spencer Rattler, mid to late third round pick.
Ray Davis.
Yeah, you know, there's a couple of guys that we're going to talk about. Some of these day 3 running backs. I really like having third round picks this year. You know, you have to have a couple of my guys in there. But we talked about this 2-3 months ago, Bob. The second and third round this year is really, really fun. It's a good place to be. And lo and behold, the end of the first round ended up being the best place to be, in my opinion.
Yep.
I actually did not want to
Easily.
be in evidence by that 103 and 107 trade. I did not want to be in the beginning of the first round because I'm afraid to miss big there. So the third round is a phenomenal place to be in these drafts right now. And you'll see in our mock draft.
Yeah. I think the third round is a kind kind of the Wild West right now. There's a lot of my guys in there. There's a lot of interesting guys falling, but there's also going to be a lot of guys that get reached on that have appealing landing spots, but have questionable profiles, questionable draft capital that you can kind of, as we've dubbed it, maybe us, whoever, whatever, fodder picks, guys that should not be going where they're going. Zach, you had a guy trade up in the second round yesterday to go pick up Spencer Rattler. And it's like in the second round of drafts, what are we doing?
Yeah.
So this is a super flex, no tight end premium PPR mock draft that is starting now. We got Lambo leaping on the clock.
And if you want to mock with us, where would you go?
These are all of our patrons right now mocking with us through patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. We dropped this in the Goldie chat first. Your priority to mock drafts.
All right, so coming off the board, pretty chalk so far in this super flex mock. We got Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., and then at the 103, Malik third person neighbors. But Bob, you're up at the 104.
I mean,
what made you pick the 104? You want to see what was here?
I kind of want to be in an interesting spot because we did, when in our mocks after day 1 or day 2, whenever we did a mock, I was at the 103 and I went JJ McCarthy, and I kind of wanted to see if that would still be available to me at this pick. And it is, and that's where I'm going. I'm going to take J.J. McCarthy off the board.
I like
Happy
that.
taking my quarterback 2 here. And this is, that whole grouping of quarterbacks that was not Caleb Williams was a pretty big tier for me.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, and J.J. goes to the best situation, good enough draft capital, not a top 5 pick like it was projected the trade up was going to be for him, but happy taking him here. And if he wasn't on the board, I easily would have gone one of the wideouts, probably Malik Neighbors. But Rome was a consideration because I do know that, hey, quarterback, sometimes when you overinvest, you're putting yourself on the line with that position where you could find, possibly more value in just trading down and trading to a less sexy pick like a Jared Goff, like we like to throw out as an option. But happy taking him here and love the situation. Very much in on the player.
So we got just a couple comments here. Dynasty Life Fantasy Football, no tenant premium. Where do you see Bowers? Well, this is not tenant premium, so we'll find out very soon. And Wayne, yes, this is super flex. First one, super flex. The next one is going to be one quarterback. So I'm kind of, I was hoping that Waffle Hauser wouldn't take Drake May. That's who I would go for. If this was a real draft, I think I would be looking to trade back a little bit here. But that being said, at the 107, I'm going to go ahead. Not the biggest fan, but Jaden Daniels at the 107. Like we said before, hey, prove me wrong. He has every opportunity to do that. There's plenty of weapons there.
And at that value, you kind of remove yourself from some of that investment risk.
Exactly.
You
get middle of the first round,
especially if you're able to trade back a little bit. Maybe you were thinking about him at 103. That's the quarterback you really wanted to draft. Maybe you're able to trade back and let some schmuck like me come up and trade up for JJ McCarthy or something like that. But I like the pick there, Mike, and catching up Rome Odunze.
Personally, Bob, I'm in agreement with you on JJ over Jaden Daniels. So you're not a schmuck. You're far from it. I agree with you. JJ McCarthy does everything he's asked to do. You can't hate the guy for that. So just recapping while the next pick comes in, we got Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, JJ McCarthy, Rome Odunze, Drake May, Jaden Daniels at the 108, Brock Bowers. If you didn't go to Las Vegas, probably 2 or 3 picks higher, I'd say.
I don't even know if
maybe with how the landing spots worked out, maybe he would be higher. If he had gone to
honestly
the Chargers or the Bengals or an ideal landing spot, I could see him as of the 106. But I think this is where you would see him anyway most of the time.
I think this is I don't think there's much inflection in this draft selection. #bars. With Brock Bowers, he was Dynasty Rewind ADP pre-draft was 106, 107. You see him one spot later. You get all the quarterbacks in there. JJ McCarthy is what kicks that tier out a little bit, but happy with it. I think, as much as I'd probably draft him later, I'd probably take Bo Nix over him. I'd probably take Brian Thomas over him. Xavier Worthy, maybe. Nate, you're on the clock.
I have a nice little choice here.
This is as
110. You guys are looking at
do it.
I can see it. Yeah.
You guys looking at my queue here, and I got 2 options.
Do it.
2 options.
Just do it.
Do the roar.
Make your flag.
Do it.
Plant my flag. But look at the running back. I could maybe use a running back here at the 110. I'm a competing team. Zach wants the running back.
It's about knowing your league mates. But we
I'm
trade
just gonna
back
be
here.
soaking up value at the one.
Yeah, you're gonna be soaking up value no matter what.
So would you trade back if you were on this spot right here?
No.
Just had a comment in the group chat. Lad coming here.
And there he is,
We're
Lad
picking Ladd
McConkey at the
McConkey
110,
here.
ladies and gentlemen.
Justin
Following
Herbert's wide receiver 1, going to John Harbaugh's. Jim Harbaugh's offense. and Greg Roman's offense, you might not be excited about that, but he's got no target competition. And the last time there was a wide receiver one without any target competition, Marquise Brown had 139 targets for Greg Roman and the Baltimore Ravens in 2021. There's plenty of targets to go around for him. I think this is a great pick here in the back half of the first round. You get a good wide receiver that you can rely on. Wide receiver four off the board for me.
All
Love
right.
it.
So after that, Jonathan Brooks does go. So Zach, did you get sniped there?
No, this is a position that I said earlier. I'm gonna milk the clock here a little bit. You
what it's
love
there
to be
for.
you love to be in this position because, and as we talked about in our moves to make, moves not to make, you don't identify one single player to select here.
Sure.
If you have a guy that you love and he's there, sure. But at the 112, I'm the league champ. I own this league, and I'm just going to soak up the value of whatever player falls to me. And that's going to be the new wide receiver one in Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence
okay.
is. I mean, look at his value. Brian Thomas at the 112. That is insane. And look, I don't disagree with Nate. I don't disagree with Jonathan Brooks pick, but that's what we're saying. The end of the first round, there's so much value to whereas, if you can move up or move back from maybe the first half of the first round where you are very risk averse, you just soak up a team's wide receiver one, or a team's running back one, or a team's quarterback one, or a team's tight end one at the end of the first round, plus pick up whatever you can get from moving back. So for me, just sitting here, not being disappointed at whatever falls in my lap because there is so much to be happy about at the 112.
I will say the best part about the draft being over is Sleeper finally has all the rookies in their database here, so we can do proper.
It's about time the Taj Washington got in there.
They probably do their
leave him
rookie
alone.
profiles like we did the rookie draft guide. Like we'll have it there, but we'll fill it out only if they get a good landing
They
spot.
didn't even give me the chance to enjoy Taj Washington. Now,
Yeah, that's true. Now it's
I
just
would have been drafting him like in the fourth round at least last week.
I agree.
Now, who knows?
Kicks off the second round with Xavier Worthy. Love that pick.
Yeah.
I am, I talked about it day 2 or reactions to day 1 prior to day 2 live stream. I hate the pick because it's going to put people on Worthy that were not going to be on Worthy because of the drops, because of whatever issues that they don't want to like Worthy, because heaven forbid he's fast and also good at football. You look at his profile compared to guys that, also ran very fast 40s, not anywhere near the same college competition or production, especially 3 years of solid production for Xavier Worthy that a lot of players in this draft would be jealous of. And I think people are going to be jealous of the value I get at this pick here.
There were 14 players drafted in the first round. There are 13 good picks in the first 13. There's first 13. That's really strong. First 13. It could be a first 14 if the Falcons didn't F it up.
So then after Xavier Worthy, we go Keon Coleman at the 2-2. Gotta love the landing spot for Keon, even if we were never the biggest fans of the player. Trey Benson, 203. So the second running back going off the board. And now, Bob, you are up at the 204. What are we thinking here?
I am somewhat torn, but if this is my pick, I'm picking at the 204. Probably not super competitive, but there's a running back here that, looks to be that way in a couple years. But
I know what's happening.
I am a big fan of Jalen Polk going to New England.
Ooh.
As much as, the thing, there's going to be some hypocrisy to this because we very much highlighted that, hey, we do not want a wide receiver going to New England. And that was a lot of thought process that they weren't going to do anything to the quarterback room, that they were just going to roll with Jacoby Brissett. They weren't going to draft a rookie. Maybe they were going to draft Marvin Harrison in the first round, and then he'd go and, be in quarterback production purgatory for how long?
Worried about Keon Coleman, we're worried about the development that the Patriots can do at the wide receiver position.
And this is the big point I'm getting to is Jalen Polk is already that dude. We've been on this guy for a minute that Jalen Polk is very talented wide receiver, very much a do-it-all wide receiver. I'm not saying he's going to be the wide receiver 1 for the Patriots forever. I think he factors in more as a wide receiver 2 for a very long time. Polk is do-it-all, like I said, but the catching ability and Chris Sprout's physicality, and I honestly was kind of surprised to see him come in at 200 pounds, 6 foot, a thick, stockier dude than I was expecting. Did not necessarily feel that way on film. I thought, I didn't think he was a rail or anything like that, but dude shows up all yoked to the combine and just, performs well there as well. So big fan of Polk, big fan of the opportunity he's going to have and the growth he can have with Drake May throwing to him. I think this is awesome for Drake May too, that they went and got somebody like this that isn't necessarily a project. And we were psyched when this pick came off the board for Polk. A guy we've been, like I said, in on for a minute. This is where he should be. Don't get cute.
Don't get cute, and don't make the mistake of thinking that Javon Baker is the New England wide receiver to have.
Mhm.
I've already seen it on Twitter. People are saying Javon Baker over Jalen Polk. They just weren't paying attention before the pre-draft process. They were paying attention to Twitter scouts who were hyping up Javon Baker. There's a reason he went day 3. Jalen Polk went in the second round. There is a tier between the two of those wide receivers.
A tier and a half, maybe 2 or 3.
Maybe.
So after Jalen Polk, we go Ricky Pearsall. Still one round 1 wide receiver out there after that. Then Malachi Corley before me. I went with Ben Sinnott. All he has to do is get past the shell of Zach Ertz, which shouldn't take too long, taking my tight end 2 off the board.
How is okay?
Don't say it.
Well, you're up next, so maybe people are watching. How is Xavier Legette on the board? I don't love Xavier Legette, but I surely wouldn't take Malachi Corley over him, or maybe even Ben Sinnott.
Well, I did, and Michael Penix goes off the board then at the 208. So now Huss is up next.
I'd like to
we know
trade up.
he's watching.
I'd like to trade up, please.
Yeah. Shout out Devin wanting to trade up.
You may.
I love sitting here at the 210.
Silly. You're gonna get Xavier Legette or Marshawn Lloyd.
I'm going to get Legette or Marshawn Lloyd, and I couldn't be happier. I was picking up Marshawn Lloyd at the back half of the second round earlier, which was called a reach by some people. He goes out there, gets day 2 draft capital, one of only 4 running backs in this draft class to get day 2 draft capital.
You're not getting Marshawn Lloyd now.
Not getting Marshawn Lloyd now, but I'm getting a first rounder. I'm getting
Silly
Xavier
value.
Legette, who I know that this profile in the past has led to some hesitation,
Mhm.
has led to players that have not worked out. But something that really has helped me buy in on Xavier Legette. Number one, not only did they move up from the first pick in the second round to the last pick in the first round to make sure they got their guy. That shows, in a vacuum, I usually wouldn't care too much about that, but it shows that they care about getting
Sure.
Xavier Legette. They are investing into him. But also with that, their new coach was talking about their usage of Xavier Legette moving forward, using him on crossing routes, using him on sweeps, using him on flat routes, on posts and goes, not asking him to run a whole bunch of digs and comebacks and comprehensive, extensive routes. They're going to use this big, fast man as a big, fast man, and that is ideal. You don't try to pigeonhole one of these players into becoming an all-around wide receiver. You take Xavier Legette's strengths, you buy into them. And if they're able to do that with Deontay Johnson able to be that separator, be that more consistent guy, and let Legette start to grow, I think this is one of actually the best landing spots for him. I didn't feel that way before the draft, but based on how they have gone about getting him, how they've talked about him since, I am getting sold on Xavier Legette. And at the 210, with the upside that he brings, he could be a top 20 wide receiver with his physicality, his build. So I think he's a great value.
Yeah.
At the back.
I mean, I can't get behind Penix. I can't get behind Sinnott as much as I love Sinnott. I especially can't get behind Corley. Pearsall, fine, another first round wideout with a polished skill set, admittedly as well. But who knows how long you're waiting till he produces. But yeah, love this pickup, Nate. Love Marshawn Lloyd, the value there too. I think he's going to be one of the best values in the draft, especially at running back. The fact that we have, such a gap between our running back picks. Hey, maybe
Only
running backs,
3 running backs.
maybe running backs aren't going to fly off the board.
Yeah.
And maybe they will. Having team situations might force teams to want to do that. But Zach, you're on the clock here.
I know a lot of good players still available, but this is kind of pick your flavor land, right?
Yeah.
Which do you prefer? They're not all good landing spots, right? We're looking at Adonai Mitchell here. I know you guys are down on the landing spot. I'm not as down as you guys are. We have Blake Corum here. I'm going to shoot for a little bit of a higher ceiling here. And this is where you don't trust the sleeper ADP. You look at everyone on the board and you pick someone that has a very high ceiling. And for me, not a player I'm super in love with, but you look at the profile, you look at the landing spot, hard to argue that this is not one of the better players available on the board, and that's Jermaine Burton, who goes to Cincinnati. And he gets Third round draft capital. So day 2, that puts him above Troy Franklin for me. Day 2 draft capital over day 3. And again, the landing spot, being able to play with Jamar Chase and potentially T. Higgins in the first year. And obviously, I think he slots right in as the wide receiver 3 in that offense and has the opportunity, depending on what happens with T. Higgins, which, I mean, does anyone see T. Higgins being on the team next year? I don't think so. So Jermaine Burton has every opportunity to be the wide receiver 2 in this offense.
I love that you said that because he's had every opportunity in college to show up and be something for a team and has done nothing with it. And that's a chief concern. However, I am also in on the landing spot.
Bengal concern, I think.
It's a Bengal concern.
It's a Bengal concern, not a chief concern.
Sure. Yeah, there you go. Fair enough. Touche. But yeah, I like the pick here, Zach. I think it's a good value. And it's a good opportunity.
At here, you're not going to find somebody without a blemish. You're going to have markers against players at the end of the second round.
I just like that
you draft Blake Corum. He's got an open backfield he's walking into.
Oh, God.
That's funny because I won the league championship last year because of Kyron Williams.
Oh, shoot. I think people won leagues on the backs of Justin Jackson. Whose side am I on? But all right, so we're at the top of this third round.
Limbo Leap, and you're
getting
a little short on the clock there.
I've seen him mouthing off in the chat.
Yeah. Go ahead, make your pick, good sir, so we can.
We got to get to the one quarterback mock.
He's even said that he said who he wants to pick. So okay, there we go.
There we go. So Troy Franklin, there's your fall for Troy Franklin. Don't want to say fall from grace, but guy who's kind of locked in back into the first round prior to the draft, falling to the fourth round in the real draft, and now the 301. Lambo Leap, and we know
Lambo. I missed that.
We have plenty of time to talk. So you're good. You go ahead and make your pick. But Troy Franklin at the 301. So now we're going to K Wade. This is the part of the draft where I start to get a little curious, see where guys start to go. We're in my guy territory.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Wild West.
I like it. Wild West. I like that.
But you still have it in the third round. We had this conversation earlier with the super chat, which, by the way, super chat's priority questions answered. You still have guys that, have day 2 draft capital here. A couple of wide receivers. There's still 1 or 2 interesting running backs, as we talked about Blake Corum. So there's still decent talent available in the third round. Whereas in previous years' drafts, this is exclusively day 3 picks. Like I said, Adonai Mitchell may not be your cup of tea, but day 2 wide receiver, second round draft capital. And I think he slots in as the wide receiver 2 for the Indianapolis Colts. So there are still good players available in the third round, because that's a question that was asked earlier via super chat.
2 good players going off the board. JT Sanders, who was the first pick in the 4th round of the draft at 302. I love that draft spot for him here. Jalen Wright, the 3-3. So going to Miami. Like what I'm seeing. Bob, you're up at the 104.
I am up
304,
at 104. Sorry. Whatever pick it is, 304. That sounds better. Zach, you mentioned that there's a lot of players on the board that have blemishes. And I think there's one that really doesn't. When you look at their production profile, you look at their skill set. Yes, the landing spot isn't as fun, but I am, as much as I love Kyron Williams, I am still very much a fan of Blake Corum in this system. And I believe in the upside. And it is something, as a Kyron manager, I do have concerns with how this backfield is going to shake out. I still think that there's a good chance that Kyron is a, primary ball carrier in that backfield, primary work getter in that backfield. But Blake Corum is a good player. He would not have the production in college if he wasn't a good player. And it's not just due to this offensive line. You see him with some of the best vision in the class. Yes, he has some size concerns. That's probably the biggest blemish that there is, full pun intended. But I did want to touch on too, while we're still kind of in this pick range, Adonai Mitchell sliding down boards. And it was mentioned by our buddy K Wade, I believe, that Adonai Mitchell was a guy going at the 112, and now he's sliding into the back, top of the third. And I just commented back, I'm like, he's just going where he should have been going all along. When you have all of these production concerns, and then you add in the efficiency concerns, one of the least efficient wide receivers, and then you add in what I believe is the actual character concern, not whatever he's doing with his diabetes or off the field. But when you look at a player who takes plays off and actively takes plays off and admits to it, that alone is my issue with the prospect. Then you go to this landing spot. What are you hoping for? Because at the end of the day, Michael Pittman's there. He's the one. He just got paid, just got re-upped. Josh Downs is there. I'm not saying that Josh Downs is even going to get more targets than Adonai Mitchell, but he is going to be a threat to a target share. And then you add in the fact this offense is going to go as Anthony Richardson goes. If he can pick up the passing work and be a very good passer, which, hey, I'm not even saying that I don't think he can, but that at the end of the day, that's going to be the driving force. And then can Mitchell get over these inefficiencies that he's had in college? And I know, hey, he hasn't had the greatest quarterback, but then you look at a guy like Xavier Worthy, who's pretty darn efficient. So, how much better is Xavier Worthy than Adonai Mitchell? For me, it's always been about a round difference. And he's still sitting here on the board as we truck along through the draft.
I'm not sure why it didn't update on here. I did make my pick. It shows me about to run out of time, but
You picked Theo Johnson? That's
I
who you
did.
picked? Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to confirm.
But yeah, so after the corn pick, Spencer Rattler, which I think I was actually hoping he would fall to me at my pick. He did not. So Spencer Rattler, then Javon Baker, another guy that I like as well. It says time's up, although I did make my pick on the app.
Refresh the page.
So yeah, Sean, if you could refresh that would be fantastic.
goes
There we go.
3-8.
So I took Theo Johnson at 307 because the two guys I wanted were picked before me. Blake Corum and Spencer Rattler is kind of who I had queued up with this pick, but Theo Johnson's going to walk into a New York Giants just receiving room as a whole. It's Malik Neighbors, and then there's a very good possibility that Theo Johnson is the number 2 target on that team relatively quickly. We still don't know if Darren Waller's coming back. He probably shouldn't at this point. Daniel Bellinger doesn't pose as
He's
much of a
already
threat
gone.
as Theo Johnson. So I like him at the middle of the 3rd round, guy who could be a starting tight end. Throw him on your taxi for a little bit, pull him up when you need him. And then we go to Audric Estime going to Denver at the 308, AD Mitchell to 309. So Nate, the 310.
Yeah.
Back to you.
I get one of my favorite 3rd round picks, one of my favorite values in the draft, and that is Ray Davis, who went to the
Great pick.
Buffalo Bills in the 4th round. Walks right into the Latavius Murray role, which saw 75 carries last year, 22 receptions, a couple touchdowns. And I think that Ray Davis, he's a very pro-ready player.
Mhm.
He can step into that role for the Buffalo Bills, which, albeit, not a high-volume role, he's a good complement to James Cook. He can take a lot of those runs inside the tackles, some short yardage situations. I know Josh Allen's often used in those situations as well. But I think Ray Davis walks right into that backup RB2 role for the Bills. And in an offense like that, there's always potential there. He has a pathway to opportunity. You can pick him up in the 3rd round. I think he's a really good running back. I'm not worried about the age. He's a one-contract guy.
Because of his age?
Because of his age, also just because he's a running back. So, if I can get a running back, a day 3 running back in the 3rd round, who I think in the next 1 and 2 years can show production, what more can you ask for, honestly, at the end of the 3rd?
Yeah, I like the pick a lot. And then, my issue with Ray Davis was always the age. And I think that's somewhat reflected in his draft capital. He was the same player, similar production aggregated over the course of his career. I think he's easily a day 2 pick, not sliding into day 3, but finds himself in a nice role. Bucky Irving off the board. Why
311,
go?
I don't hate it. End of the 3rd round.
I don't hate it either. I just hate the landing spot. Like,
Yep.
Good enough draft capital. And the odd thing about this from me in this pick is like, it's so redundant to what Rashad White is, in my opinion. So
It's really interesting because on the podcast, I think last week, I was talking about the Bucks GM and what he had said previous to the draft about Rashad White, and that they would be adding competition, and that they would be looking for a player like Rashad White to spell Rashad White.
so they just it's just gonna be a hot hand.
We do
is
have
what
a
it
super
sounds
chat
like.
coming through, though. This is from Lambo Elite. Please run another mock and force Nate to pick in the top 5 just so he can't take Lad.
No, we'll
Hell
make
is
The
that
one
man?
quarterback, I can take Lad in the top 5.
Oh man.
watch me.
Jokes on you, Lambo Leap. Lambo Leap, sorry. Yeah. Nate gonna Nate. What can I say?
I think
Zach.
that's the 1 or 2 in the next.
Yeah, I'm on the clock here. I'm actually torn here between 2 day 3 wide receivers. One is actually my guy in the draft guide, which you can check out in the pinned comments.
Are either of them any good?
Yeah, I think they're both very good. One is Devontae Walker, who got drafted to Nate's
Okay, so that's not the
Baltimore
good one.
Ravens, and the other is my Jacob Cowing, who was
Oh, that's
drafted
pretty
to the San Francisco 49ers.
Very good.
I think here I'm going to have to go, even though my guy is Jacob Cowing, I think he's a little bit more buried on the depth chart. Devontae Walker, I think, steps into a role day 1.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Top 3 wide receiver
Oh,
on that
you're
team. So
sniping
What a good
to-
offense.
or-
I'm going to go ahead and take Devontae Walker there, as much as it hurts my heart to do that. We preach good value. We preach taking the best player available, and the best player available is not my guy. It's Nate's guy. So I'm going to take Devontae
Got
Walker.
3 wide receivers, Zach. How you feeling about that? Sitting at the
I
back.
feel great.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just soaking up value is what I'm doing. I'm gonna win the championship again in this league. Kyron Williams is gonna take me there, plus all these draft picks. I mean, might as well just mock me at the 112 next year's startup as well.
Yeah, see, I'm sitting at the 110. I lost in the semifinals, but my score in the championship week was actually higher than yours. So just get ready. I got
you
lad.
just ran to a buzzsaw.
I just ran into
Semi.
Yeah,
Scroll
Team
down a little
America.
bit so we can see the fifth round.
Oh, that's
All
fun.
All right, so Sean's going to scroll down a little bit so we can see the fifth round. There we go. So after Bucky Irving, Zach taking Devontae Walker at the 312. Then Jalen McMillan goes at the 4-1. Now we're back to K-Wade. Let's see.
Sean, it should show as the screen sits if you just hit the arrow down button on the right side.
See what we do at the 4-2.
Right.
I don't know what I'm looking for, but I think he might have just went off the board. Nope, he didn't. He's still there. He's still
Looks like
trucking.
people are getting sniped. It's always fun when you get sniped in the mid rounds, late rounds.
Yeah.
I like the Jalen McMillan pick here.
I like this. I like this third round. You know, we see 5 running backs go in the third round. That's where the running back value is in this draft. I mean, you have Brooks, Benson, Lloyd through the first 2. Maybe you'll see Corum in there, but probably not with Kyron there. Maybe you'll see Wright in there at times. But this third round is really where you're going to get your running backs. If you're looking for those mid-tier running backs to fill out your depth chart on your team, you know, have some backups with some potential. The third round is where you're going to get them.
I think that is mostly true, but I think I'm looking at one here who's a backup currently, but with 2 busted up running backs in front of him, I'm going to go ahead and snag
Ooh,
Kamani
yes.
Vidal here. Going to the Chargers, boatload of what I believe to be there will be some opportunity in this backfield because J.K. Dobbins, love him or hate him, probably most people are a little spurned by him at this point, but there are probably still people that are out there that still like the guy, believe in the talent, but coming off an ACL, coming off an Achilles, don't like those odds. Gus Edwards has always been a plotter and not offered much else in terms of, hey, go run this ball as hard up the middle as you can. So take Kamani Vidal, who I think has a pretty good all-around skill set, one of the best pass blockers,
Yes.
I believe, in the draft as
I think
well.
he's,
Somebody who's going to earn the trust of that offensive coaching system, the Harbaugh system. And I think he'll, if there's any injury, I don't see any other running back on that roster stepping into a larger role, as much as he's a rookie and whatnot, but he's also, you know, with a lot of these rookies, there's age concerns, and Kamani Vidal, not the case. So I'll take him here, and I'm pretty happy with that. Taking a later shot on a running back in the 4th round. I mean, everybody else here, I'm struggling with what I'm going to do in the 5th, so I'm pretty happy getting 4 picks I like, and maybe 5th I do too.
How
But
dare you besmirch Isaiah Spiller?
So after
He did that
Jalen
himself.
McMillan and before Kamani Vidal got picked at the 4-4, we got Brendan Rice, who went all the way down to the 7th round. Will Shipley at the 4-3. Then after Kamani Vidal, Eric, all aquatic banjo. I was trying to go quarterback and all tight end. You kind of screwed that up for me. And then Waffle Hauser taking Dylan Lobb
quarterback
at 406. I went Luke McCaffrey, who I think we can all agree was drafted a little bit higher than we expected him to. But at the 407, he's
This isn't bad.
guy. No,
Yeah, I don't hate this at all.
good value. I'm going to throw him on my taxi squad for a year or 2 and see what he does from there. And then Malik Washington going to Zach's Miami Dolphins at the 408. Going to be a little bit harder for him to get on the field than Luke McCaffrey, I would imagine.
Yeah, I
Stacked
mean,
wide receiver room in Miami.
yeah, well, and even here's the thing: we were having this discussion last night about discussing if this was a good or bad landing spot for Washington. At the end of the day, so much of the target share is eaten up by Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle that there is just not a lot to go around. I mean, your third receiving option is looking at a 10% target share, and that's just, is that really fun at the end of the day? And I mean, honestly, if Malik Washington could get that consistently week in, week out, he could be a solid flex play for you. But and injuries happen. Tyreek Hill is getting older. Some hopium plays a role here too. But hey, we love the talent of Malik Washington. I hope he does get a role. Certainly a better landing spot than Taj Washington and draft capital. So, and Zach, your boy Jacob Conway
Going
comes
to
up.
the San
Saw
Francisco
that.
49ers.
Our
Talk
boy.
about,
I like Jacob.
Not cool.
I mean, in the 4th round, he is a little bit buried, but again,
He
we're
wasn't going to do anything for your competitive team.
We're
anytime soon
taking
anyway.
developmental taxi guys in the 4th round here, so I don't hate it.
You know, I love my 4th round pick here. I get my backup.
I was just going to say
I get my
Isaac
backup for
Guerrero.
CMC.
Yeah,
I get a player
I like
who
that.
has a lot of potential if he has to become a spot starter. I don't know if Guerrero is the RB2 in this team right away, but there's honestly not a lot of competition, a lot of stout competition for that RB2 role behind CMC. that RB2 role doesn't get any kind of volume at all as long as CMC is healthy. We'll see if that changes this year. But if CMC is out, and we have seen Christian McCaffrey miss time in the past, in the Shanahan scheme, in the 49ers run scheme, you're putting a guy that has some of the best athletic profile in this entire draft class. You're putting him there in that kind of scheme. The potential is there in the 4th round. I mean, we have Garendo, I believe, is a top 10 RB in this draft.
Doesn't take much.
It doesn't take much, and you're picking
There's
him up
hardly
in the-
any taken. That's
you're
pretty
picking him
easy.
up in the back of the 4th round. When we're talking dart throws at the running back position, I don't think there's a much better combination of potential and value than Isaac Garendo here at the 410.
Yeah, no, I like it a lot. It's one of those guys locked into a role, extremely high value backup that if at any point CMC were to go down, if you're a competitive team and you have him, use him.
Yep.
If you're not a competitive team and you don't have any use for a solid running back, if it's a handcuff, CMC misses time, flip him
For a second.
probably for a 2nd round pick in that offense.
Yeah.
This is, we use these McVay, Shanahan offenses as benchmarks for, hey, if a running back can't cut it here, he probably can't cut it. Isaac Garando goes to a perfect situation. I like this pick a good bit.
There's the Zach pick.
Zach gonna Zach. Tyron Tracy. Tyron
Hey, that's a
Tracy
good spot.
Jr.
That's a good
Yeah,
pick.
I like
I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
I think besides Kamani Vidal, this is the best running back landing spot in the 4th round. I really do, because it's a player that has a lot of development still to go. Only 1 year of experience at the position in college, and lands in a spot where there is opportunity. It's Devin Singletary there. It's Eric Gray. I mean, I believe Tracy can beat out Eric Gray, at least in terms of the value on that depth chart.
Watch your
And
mouth.
I'm sorry, you're a big Eric Gray stan.
Yeah,
He was.
I don't think Tyron
Still
Tracy's
is.
good enough as a running back to beat out Eric Gray.
I think
don't
as a
know that
running
he's
back and a
not.
pass catcher, he's good enough to beat Eric Gray. I
I
do.
wholeheartedly disagree.
I wholeheartedly disagree with you too.
That's fine.
And for the value at the 412, I think I got, besides Kamani Vidal, as Bob said, I think that's the best available running back in the 4th round, in my opinion.
All right. So at the top of the 5th,
Into the 5th.
what are we hoping to get out of this round, boys?
Oh man,
Somebody we
A
can
4th
flip for
round pick in
something
the
later?
future.
Yeah,
I have
Looking at a taxi squad player, right? That's what the idea is.
easily.
So who is your stash? That's what we're looking at the 5th round. Who do you feel comfortable stashing?
easy pick
Dash,
for me.
thrash, hashtag bars. That's not who I'm picking.
Stash some trash.
Yep, that's more accurate.
Michael Pratt.
I like to throw some tight ends
At the
on the taxi
5-1.
squad. Quarterback
Ooh.
sometimes.
There we
Thanks,
go.
Jared Wiley, who I just put in my queue.
Cade
Thanks
Stover before
thanks for
that.
reminding me. I am going to go ahead and I'm going to take a little sleeper, Tanner
These are
McLaughlin,
the good
who,
taxi picks.
who goes to Cincinnati. And I know Eric All went there earlier, and I like Eric All a good bit too. But I could see Eric All being slotted into, because of the question marks he has as a receiver with drops and things of that sort, also his health. Eric All is a phenomenal blocker when healthy. I mean, one of the best run blocking tight ends in this class, in my opinion. Very questionable hands, though. And Tanner McLaughlin, built to catch, great body. I believe he's a solid enough route runner and can get open. Obviously, can make catches. I don't believe he recorded a drop over the course of his entire collegiate career, which was a long one, albeit didn't play every season, was hurt in 1 year, so he missed a year and redshirted his first year. So he's been in college for a minute, so doesn't have a ton of production, was solid, like him as a player. And hey, Cincinnati, there could be a lot of people that go spend picks on Eric All, and Eric All ain't all that. And they looked at Tanner McLaughlin as a receiving option, which they really haven't had a bona fide receiving option. I think Eric All can do it, but if those blemishes show up too frequently and he doesn't develop past them, more questions on top of questions. So, see Rasheen Ali come off the board. Your favorite Ravens pick of the
That
draft.
was going to be
Either that or
my
Devin
pick
Leary, I
here,
guess.
but
Is it better than Devin Leary? I'll take your word for it. Then Jaheim Bell, their tight end stash. I think there probably a lot of tight end stashes in this round.
Yep.
Maybe some UDFAs crack the mold. I will not be taking any UDFAs in this draft. I don't think there's anybody that was a good enough UDFA. I will say I was surprised that Dylan Johnson didn't get drafted. And I was
me too.
howling at the moon for Dallas to draft Dylan Johnson because I thought that would have been a phenomenal landing
All in.
spot. I like Dylan Johnson a good bit. I think he probably would have ended up overdrafted and all the value floats away, but easily would have been my favorite pick and probably the only UDFA I really have a ton of interest in. Didn't care for many of the wide receivers that were left, any of the other running backs, tight ends. As much as I like Dallin Holker in the pre-draft process,
The NFL didn't,
the NFL didn't.
and that's what's important.
But
It did go to the Saints as UDFA though, so.
join that scrapyard.
So after the Rasheen Ali pick, we got Gene Bell. Jordan Whittington is who I went with out of Texas. Jordan Travis. Actually, after Spencer Rattler, I didn't expect to see any quarterbacks taken, but we got one there, and we got Michael Pratt at the beginning of this round. Then Cody Schrader, UDFA 2. I believe he went to the 49ers, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's where everybody goes.
And then Nate is up with his last pick of this mock
And
draft.
you know what? I actually kind of want that guy from Utah who was the linebacker / safety who is now playing running back.
Sandvaki.
I would be interested in him here at this point because he has a nice athletic profile,
Sure.
but he's not available in sleeper.
I bet he'll be available in IDP draft.
So I'm going to go with a different
someday.
running back that also is a weird running back with upside. I'm going to go ahead and pick the rugby player from Wales
Sure, why not?
because Kansas City did not draft a running back this draft because they already picked up one in this guy. Let's take a shot.
Or because they already like Isaiah Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
I mean,
For some reason.
that's also true.
Clyde, not Isaiah.
But this guy is fast, and this is the 5'10".
Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm fine with it. At this point in drafts,
Round, exactly.
It's the 5'10", and like I said, I'd take that the running back that out of Utah, but otherwise this guy. I also looked at Bub Means. Good pick, Zach.
Yeah, I was thinking about Bub Means too, but then we close it out with Anaya Smith and then Bub Means. So that is our 5-round super flex
drop.
rookie mock draft.